Last week we started, and this is the first time I've done this since I've had a series. I'm going to have a series on in Standing in the Gap Moment. We started last week on the Evangelicals. There's a lot of talk and stories going around about evangelicals, and we talked about a little last week. And basically, the point is, what is going on with the evangelical movement and their association with Donald Trump and all that, and it needs some it needs getting into. It needs some explanation because I find it very difficult to understand what's going on with that. And what I thought as we get into this today is that we need to figure out what actually is an evangelical.
That's a good start. We have to understand the definition.
And my research has shown that I guess the best definition might be a Christian who believes in the core values contained in the Gospels. You know, Gospels, first 4 books of the New Testament. The core values contained in that. And when I thought about that definition, I said, well, then to an extent, aren't we all evangelicals who are, if we're Christians, believing in the core values of the Gospels? However, the term evangelical has, as you probably noticed, become highly politicized. And it began, and the best way to describe way it is looked at today when they refer to evangelicals, Donald Trump, and all that, is it refers to a voting bloc, or as a blanket term for conservatives, or those with fundamental views, conservative views or fundamental views. And make no doubt about it, they are both white and black evangelicals. So, what's the difference? Well, the difference is basically politics. The difference is politics. And to a certain extent, white evangelicals have become a facilitator, and if not the principal purveyor, of white supremacy in America, which actually has framed the entire American story. We could go way back with this, but we won't. And you see, what has kind of made this thing explode a bit is as America has become more and more liberal and progressive, white evangelicals seem to have lost their way. And in an effort to preserve what they believe to be core American values, and you see I went from gospel values to American values, it's becoming more clear that they've basically struck a Faustian deal with the devil's emissary as expressed through Mr. Donald Trump. You see, Faust, and some of you who may not know, Faust was a real person who, according to German legend, was a well-to-do person who was dissatisfied with his life and who struck a deal with the devil, who gave him unlimited knowledge and worldly pleasures in exchange for his soul. In order to outlaw abortion and the gang of America, the evangelicals have struck a deal with the devil. And with the cost being their very souls. You know, I remember when Joe Biden said that he got into the race because this was a battle for the soul of America. Well, some people have exchanged their soul for what they feel is something that they absolutely want to have or whatever. See, basically by striking that deal, the evangelicals have turned their back on Micah 6:8. Justice, mercy, walking humbly with your God. Now, and I put a little video up here to show start to illustrate what is happening. Those that may not be able to see it clearly, there's Donald Trump, and the one next to him, the woman, has Stormy on the front of her dress. And Donald is saying, look to the evangelical who is to the right. Look the other way, and I'll keep shilling for your version of Jesus who doesn't like poor people and immigrants. And of course, the evangelical says, amen, brother. Because you would think that's not a position that evangelicals would take. You would think, right? But as I said, I have a few videos for you, and I'm going to ask Marvel to put up the first video.
Hi, Jamie Cowan here to talk to you today about a Faustian bargain. Now, what is a Faustian bargain? It's based upon a popular German legend from the Middle Ages about a guy named Faust. Faust is a scholar who is bored and depressed about his life. He makes a deal with the devil to enable himself to have great knowledge and worldly pleasures. In turn, after a number of years, the devil claims Faust's soul, and Faust will be eternally enslaved. The Faustian bargain derives from this legend. The idea is a pact where a person trades something of supreme moral value for worldly success like knowledge, power, or riches. This sadly describes the overwhelming evangelical support for Donald Trump. Now, I want to be clear. I'm not making a judgment on whether one person or another voted for Trump. Certainly in 2016, I can understand why people voted for him. My concern, however, is the horrific trade-off between those who claim devotion to God and support for someone who is personally so ungodly in behavior and speech and who has caused untold division and damage to the United States. Yes, I've heard all the excuses. We're not voting for a pastor. Look how God used the ungodly King Cyrus in the Bible. Yes, we wish he wouldn't be so unkind in his remarks, but he does appoint conservative judges, and on and on and on. I hear and read from so many evangelical supporters of Trump that we need someone to stand up to the deluge of immorality spreading through our society, like abortion, like from the LGBTQ community, or from the Black Lives Matter movement. Yet, it was the era of the 1960s that caused far more social changes and unrest than anything like today. Consider the events of the 60s and early 70s. There was the Civil Rights Movement, Vietnam War protests, the assassinations of John F. Kennedy, Robert Kennedy, and Martin Luther King. Serious urban rioting, far worse than anything like today. Large-scale experimentation with psychedelic drugs and heroin. Huge changes in sexual mores. The women's rights movement. The Equal Rights Amendment. The Supreme Court banning of the Bible and Bible reading and prayer in public schools. And the legalization of abortion. The whole decade saw radical changes. Yet, guess what came out of this period? It was the Jesus movement, where many who were involved in those very things were looking for something more. Here's my question. When did following Jesus become linked with public support of a politician? Look, I remember when I came to faith in Jesus in 1969. Politics was never discussed in any of the meetings that I attended. What's interesting is that at that time, I was planning a career in politics. But as I contemplated my life and considered the possibility of a successful political career, such as maybe running for the U.S. Senate and actually accomplishing significant things, and then getting married and having children and grandchildren and then eventually dying, I felt, well, that's great, but is that it? Isn't there something more? And when I learned about Jesus and read his words, something just clicked inside. It made my life make more sense and become more meaningful. There was now a higher purpose. This was true of all those who came to faith in those days. Politics was just not part of the equation. The Jesus of that era was inclusive, hopeful, life-changing. He was seen as the answer to the turmoil of the time. Today, social posts from evangelical leaders and other believers are filled with political tirades. If Trump is defeated and Biden is elected, the country as we know it will go the way of Sodom and Gomorrah. Come on, that is ridiculous. Let's look at the party in the White House since the end of World War II. From 1945 to 52, Democrat. From 53 to 60, Republican. 61 to 68, Democrat. 69 to 76, Republican. 77 to 80, Democrat. 81 to 92, Republican. 93 to 2000, Democrat. 2001 to 08, Republican. 2009 to 16, Democrat. 2017 to today, Republican. You see, this exemplifies the beauty of the American political experience, a shared political destiny. What's changed is the alarmist and disparaging political speech spewing from the mouths of so-called followers of Yeshua. I've described in other vlogs how the politicization of the gospel began with the moral majority's formation in the 1970s. Allegedly, their goal was to return America to her Christian roots. But as I described in that vlog, the real motivation behind the organization's formation was to prevent the racial integration of all white Christian private schools in the South. From there, it launched its opposition to abortion and later gay rights. Sadly, evangelical politicization has only grown since then, now with the existence of multiple religious political organizations today. Incredibly, it's reached its high point in the relationship with Donald Trump and his administration. Here is the Faustian bargain. Yes, the evangelical community has greater access to a president than ever before, although President Bush himself was an actual evangelical. Yes, Trump has appointed conservative judges, tried to defund Planned Parenthood, pushed back on LGBTQ rights, and has been supportive of religious liberty issues. But at what cost? Evangelicals are supporting a person who has been accused in numerous accounts of sexually accosting women, even bragging himself on a video to that effect. A person who really rarely tells the truth. Supporting someone who regularly accuses immigrants of being rapists and murderers. Who has transformed the American ideal expressed by the Statue of Liberty, which welcomes immigrants to our shores, including my own grandparents, into walled-off borders. Who regularly attacks minority groups. Who continually minimizes and fails to address the worst pandemic to hit American shores in 100 years. Who openly welcomed Russian interference into the 2016 election. Who sought to trade military assistance to a foreign power for dirt on a political opponent. Honestly, the non-evangelical world is appalled at the hypocrisy and double standards applied to Donald Trump by evangelical leaders. The Faustian bargain is trading the purity of the gospel message for political access and power. Where is there anywhere in the Bible that would conceivably support such a trade? The reality is, culture changes. We may not like all the changes, but you can't legislate culture. You can only make adjustments for it. Many evangelicals find Trump a warrior for their values, feeling like they're being dismissed by society's elites. It's interesting to note that Yeshua addresses this directly on the Sermon on the Mount. This is what he says. Blessed are you when people insult you, persecute you, and falsely say all kinds of evil against you because of me. Rejoice and be glad, because great is your reward in heaven. For in the same way they persecuted the prophets who were before you. Note that he doesn't say, rise up and fight back. Rather, he says, rejoice and be glad. It's right after this that Yeshua says that you're the light of the world, that you are the salt of the earth. Maybe showcasing a different way of responding to persecution is a way to be salt and light. In the end, the hope for evangelical platform has been in large part thwarted anyway. Even with the appointment of conservative judges, Roe v. Wade was upheld again by the Supreme Court in this year's June Medical Services versus Russo case. LGBTQ rights were upheld in Bostock versus Clayton County, Georgia. What's left? Sadly, the wreckage of the gospel message. Where America is genuinely suffering and needs hope, encouragement, and healing, the gospel of the past brought that. Today, it's associated with intolerance, division, and nationalism. If that was the message that I would have heard 50 years ago, I'm not so sure that I would ever have become a follower of Yeshua the Messiah. Wow. Repentance is in order. Repentance, that is, of the body of Messiah relying on politics to be the answer over Jesus being the answer. Thank you, and see you next time.
Well, I tell you, a Faustian bargain, huh? You know, the problem with the Faustian bargain is you got to pay the piper. So you make a deal with the devil, and just like in Faust, he eventually comes for your soul, and you can't get it back. So these evangelicals who are rejoicing in what Trump has done with the Supreme Court and how he's been intolerant of people across the ledger, they might want to think about it and understand. When I talk about evangelicals, what we're talking about here are basically white evangelicals. There are black evangelicals. And then even with white evangelicals, there are those who don't go for the okey doke.
You know that so we call them the evangelicals, we call them the white evangelicals, but really what we're talking about is people who are, I'm going to call them political bullies. They're political bullies who stand behind their Christianity and say, I'm doing this because I'm the moral majority, or I'm doing this because this is what's right by God. But really what this gentleman said is what it is. We're doing this because we want our culture to prevail. And we'll do anything. We'll do anything to make sure that our culture will prevail. We'll carry a Christian flag into the capital of the United States of America while committing sedition and trying to murder people. And that's what they're standing for. So they call them that, but these are people who truly are not living by Christ's teachings at all.
You know, they, as I indicated, they're confusing American values with gospel values, and that's where you start to get the little rift. And then also, it's politics. Politics. The gospel was never meant to be political, but when they start going political with it, then they take it out of the hands of God to handle, and they want to handle it themselves.
But you know, I wouldn't even call it American values. What it really is it's European Caucasian values.
They call it American
I
values.
know they call it that, but those values aren't valuing what American values value.
What they understand is that American value, whatever you want to call American values, I don't care if you want to call it European values that have been inherited by Americans or whatever, because that's basically what the girl Marjorie Green was talking about, that she wanted to have those European values, bring America back to the European values. You got something, looks like.
Yes, Sister Barbara said that is so bad because they're not listening to God's word, and they're not. You know, how can you be so hateful?
Well, they don't think they're hateful. They think they're standing up for godly values. That's what they think. and they don't care that they made this bargain. They don't see down the road that
They
somebody's
don't have to
coming
pay.
for their soul.
Yeah.
But that's to show that there are some who aren't going with. Can you play the second video?
The City Gates Church in Virginia is praying for a peaceful election.
Friends, right now, there are forces at work trying to tear America apart with tactics straight out of the pit of hell.
Among the faithful spilling onto the lawns outside, a mother of 5 who's placed Jesus Christ at the centre of everything she does.
I try to live my whole life around following him and understanding him and growing closer to him.
On November 3rd, she'll vote for Donald Trump.
Is he a good role model for your kids?
No.
But her faith and his anti-abortion stance makes it an easy decision.
It's kind of a good versus evil choice. I just can't vote for a party that is going to celebrate the right to take those lives away.
President Trump's become a hero for millions of evangelicals, appointing conservative judges and slashing funding for pro-choice organisations.
I think he's as popular as a saint. I don't know if everybody would canonize him.
In the weeks before COVID first hit the headlines, Donald Trump became the first sitting president to address the annual anti-abortion rally known as March for Life.
Unborn children have never had a stronger defender in the White House.
Giving devout Christians the confidence to wear their colours without fear.
We were made to feel like weirdos, you know. Now we feel that we're accepted and that we're acknowledged and that we're respected.
But not all evangelicals are preaching from the same verse.
Prominent evangelical magazine Christianity Today is calling for President Trump to be removed from office.
Mark Garley's final editorial prompted a flood of support from fellow evangelicals, as well as fears for the safety of his family.
One death threat was targeted for Christmas Day, that they were going to do something on Christmas Day.
The former pastor is devoted to the pro-life cause, but can't abide the president's character.
Pro-life goes beyond protecting life in the womb. It certainly includes that and must include that. But pro-life also has to do with caring for the immigrant and the refugee and the asylee in our country. It has to do with caring for the poor.
All over America, evangelicals are weighing up a big decision, and where they land matters immensely for the outcome of this election. That's because of their sheer number. There's, by some accounts, as many as 100 million evangelicals in America, almost a third of the population.
Once I was blind.
On election day, evangelical voices will be heard. But even this flock is divided. David Lipson, ABC News, Washington.
All right. So, and I put that up so that you'll know that the even all white evangelicals aren't on the same ticket that the majority of them are on, and the ones that are most vocal are on. So that, you know, let's keep in mind, we would be guilty of the same thing they're doing if we lumped everybody into the same in the same category.
Barb did interject though before that the video. How do they think they can speak for all of us?
Well, that's true, and they and understand, as we said before, a lot of those white evangelical beliefs are tied into white supremacy too. So they don't even act like they want to speak for us, but they act like they speak for all white evangelicals, and it's not true. It's not true. Now, while they may be getting what they want with what Trump has done, he's stacked the court. Roe v. Wade is in the balance coming up and all that, and they think they're sitting pretty when it comes to that decision. And basically, you never know, because as I tell my wife, once you get appointed to the Supreme Court, it's a lifetime decision. Now you don't owe anything to anybody. He can't fire you. But, you know, that doesn't mean that their values may echo what he's doing. But even if that happens, because I tell you, a lot of their values I go along with. I'm not saying that. The problem is the Faustian deal, and those who think that this Donald Trump is their messiah for their principles and all that may want to see the next two videos.
Partial birth abortion, the eliminating of abortion in the third trimester, big issue in Washington. Would President Trump ban partial birth abortion?
Well, look, I'm very pro-choice. I hate the concept of abortion. I hate it. I hate everything it stands for. I cringe when I listen to people debating the subject. But I just believe in choice. And again, it may be a little bit of a New York background because there is some different attitude in different parts of the country. And, you know, I was raised in New York and grew up and work and everything else in New York City. But I am strongly for choice, and yet I hate the concept of abortion.
But you would not ban it?
No.
Or ban partial birth abortion?
No, I am pro-choice in every respect.
Now,
am I going straight to the next one?
A lot of people here care about economics. They also care about social issues. Where are you now on
the Donald Trump, as he was running for president, he says, I am pro-choice. Isn't that what he just said?
He said, I'm very pro-choice.
Yeah, I'm not only just a little pro-choice, I'm very pro-choice. And all this was intentional because he wanted to get the evangelical vote, okay? And, you know, his projection was, if I could tap into that, then I've got a strong base. And so I'm running for president. I am pro-choice. Now let's see the other video. This was before he ran for president.
A lot of people here care about economics. They also care about social issues. Where are you now on the question of if abortion should be illegal and whether same-sex marriages should be allowed?
Well, I'm pro-life, and I have been pro-life.
What does that mean to you?
Well, it means it's an issue. I mean, it is an issue, and it's a strong issue. And as far as same-sex marriage, I am for traditional marriage, but it seems that that's really becoming a states' right issue, and probably the Supreme Court at some point is going to be making a ruling on that soon.
Abortion,
you know, at some point they should be making
abortion, even in pregnancy, early in a pregnancy, is murder to you?
No, what I'm saying is this, with caveats: life of the mother, incest, rape. And that's where I stand. And it's so I'm pro-life, but with the caveats. And you have to have with the caveats.
Right.
So it's pro-life. You know, just because it's the first time you've asked me this question.
Well,
and
it's a lot of people here care about the issue.
That's right. So it's pro-life, right? But it's life of the mother, very important. Incest and rape.
Okay. So say a woman is pregnant and it's not in any of those exception categories and she chooses to have an abortion.
Depends when. It depends when.
Well,
it
so
depends when.
Well,
but the answer is if it's not in those.
Early in her pregnancy.
Excuse me. If it's not in those, I'm pro-life. Yeah. Mark, very simple. Pro-life.
So if you're against same-sex marriage, would you like to see states or the federal government outlaw it?
No. What's happening is states are going to make the decision. I think what will happen is states will end up making the decision.
And that's what should happen.
Now, we have to see what happens with the Supreme Court because they're going to start coming down with rulings. Probably right now they've taken the easy way out, and they've been taking the easy way out, but at some point they're going to come down. But as of this moment, I am totally, you know, it's a states' right issue.
So on one, he's pro-choice. On the other, he's pro-life. Matter of fact, he was very pro-choice, right?
Very pro-choice.
And pro-life, I mean, can they not see the hypocrisy? If he wants to get your vote, what do you want me to say to get your vote?
That's what I'm going to say.
I am pro-life. Well, what about when you were very pro-choice? Well, that was before. I wasn't trying to get your vote then. These videos, those videos I showed, are not like hidden somewhere and only a few people can tap into it. The evangelicals have access to that if they want it.
Well, shoot, they have access to that Access Hollywood video where he proudly bragged on assaulting women.
Mm-hmm. Isn't that something? I mean,
so I remember seeing back in 2016, or yeah, it must have been in early 2016. Somebody asked one of these evangelical Christians, "How can you vote for Donald Trump? He is the most morally bankrupt person that is in the whole field of candidates."
Mm-hmm.
And they said, "I'm gonna hold my nose and vote for him."
Mm-hmm. So in 99, October 21st, 4th, 99, he was pro-choice. But as he's running for office, he is now pro-life. All right, final video on this.
Hi, my name is Phil, and I and my wife are full-time RVers, and our home state where we domicile is Box Elder, South Dakota. I've been a lifelong Republican and have been proud to be a Republican up till 2016 when our current president, Donald Trump, was elected. And I didn't vote for him in 2016. I could see what he was back then, and I did vote, but I did a write-in vote. Couldn't vote for Hillary either, of course, but did a write-in, and I have just been so disappointed in Trump, but not surprised, because I could see this coming in 2016, the sort of person he was. I'm an evangelical Christian, and so, of course, as you would know, I'm in the minority to my Christian friends, because most of them love and adore him, which I can't understand. The rhetoric that comes from his mouth, and the way he acts, and the way he treats people, Jesus would definitely not approve. And it's kind of funny when I talk to my Christian friends, about his rhetoric and the way he acts, and how they can support him. They talk about him being against abortion, and that he's elected conservative judges, and you talk about his rhetoric and that Jesus wouldn't approve, and it's, well, I wouldn't invite him over to my house for dinner. So I don't know. I guess I don't understand it. It's like they do see it, but they don't see it. I will not be voting for Donald Trump in the upcoming election. Not sure yet that I'll be voting for Biden. I need to do some more research, need to watch and see what he says, but I definitely will not be voting for Donald Trump.
You see, some evangelicals get it. And we're not asking them to vote for Biden or all that. The question was, why are you supporting Trump? And he got the message. And how many times did he say he definitely won't?
He definitely. What's so interesting is that they had some decent people in the mix in 2016, for the presidential candidacy. They had some decent people who were Christians. Mm-hmm. Donald Trump, I don't usually say, oh, that person's not a Christian or that person is a Christian. But, like you always say, your fruits show what you're doing and who you are. And his fruits don't show anything but Satan. There's no Jesus in there. There's no Christianity in there. So there were a lot of people running that were Christians, but Donald tapped into that desire for white supremacy, the desire for we want our culture to dominate America. We don't want to welcome any immigrants. We don't want to value any black lives. He tapped into that hatred, and that's what he rode on. The problem is that that's a minority. It's a minority, and when they show their ugliness like they did for the whole 4 years he was in office, culminating in that horribleness on January 6th, a lot of people said, I can't go that far. So this guy here, he's definitely.
He's definitely. That Donald Trump is a bridge too far for him. And he's not the only one.
Yeah.
He's not the only one. So let's not get that twisted. But the evangelical movement, as it's being portrayed, is ready to go over that bridge. That was too far for him and too far for a lot. Now, of course, there's hypocrisy. All right, and understand that whatever they want as American values and all that kind of thing, it's their interpretation. It's their interpretation. And they push Jesus to the side so they get what they want. The devil will be coming to collect.
Oh, yeah.
He will come to collect.
Part of the whole QAnon thing,
which I didn't get into.
You didn't even get into
purpose.
that, but part of their belief system is that Donald Trump is their savior.
Right. And that obviously he's a Messiah figure because he's going to be resurrected back into the presidency.
Right, that was supposed to happen in March, didn't it?
They keep moving that goalpost. They keep doing it. But they keep counting the votes and all that. And so, the hypocrisy is there. Now, that's our stand in the gap moment. Next week, as I said, this is kind of like an installment. Thank you. We're going to